Hello everyone, welcome to Scorcher Toys at AnyMoon.com's transformation guide for Arcadia's 1/60 scale VF-0A and VF-0S toys. Essentially the same toys, so I will be using them interchangeably as I go. You're going to begin with closing up your landing gear doors. We'll just put that toy aside and start using this one. Your fighter mode should look like this. At the back, with the backpack, there should be feet tied up against that backpack, and we are going to begin with, let's get the wings out a little bit, just applying a little pressure outward and popping those legs free. If you're familiar with VF1 toys, you're familiar with the next step, and that is there is a peg that leads from the back into a slot in the leg. We're just going to go ahead and free that up. So pop it free like so. Same thing on the other side here. Okay, so now they've popped free. You could see the slot there and the peg there. So that's what we've freed up. Now you can just keep going forward here. And there's a Gerwalk joint right there. You can go ahead and bring those legs up. And then you can go ahead and extend the leg out. Now doing this kind of reveals one of the things I'm not too keen on this toy, and that's the intakes might separate from you a little prematurely. Not a big deal. We can just continue on. We're going to go ahead and lift up the feet and open them up. And we can turn the toy over now, bring those legs forward, and they can twist at the knees. Now we're going to focus on the backpack, and I begin, if I haven't done so already, by removing one of the intake covers. I'll get to why in just a second here. Turning our attention to the very back of the vehicle, we're going to go ahead and lift up on this fin here. Now, if you give it too much of a yank, it'll just fall right out. It's really not a big deal. Then we can go ahead and bring this one over as we lean out on this one. Fold it over, and you bring it in so it's nice and tight. You really don't want this toy to fall over too often. There's a pitot tube in the front. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and take the backpack and just roll it over. This little piece here should flap down. Then we can flop open the hook, and that reveals a little peg that we can push back to extend these nozzles here. So I'm going to go ahead and take that intake cover I removed and fish it in there. And you see there I've got it started, and I can just push it all the way back. And this seems to be a pretty sturdy piece of plastic, so haven't had any problems with it, and there you go. Now you can see that those are nice and fully extended, and we can just go ahead and push that back and return that intake cover if we desire. Now we already pulled out the feet and opened them up, but I want to show you a little trick, because when you first buy the toy, in the first few transformations, the feet are very, very stiff. And so if you open them up, they are going to be in sort of a vertical stance pose, and for Gerwalk that's not exactly what you want. You want to kind of angle them way forward. So it's easier to close the foot back up and then rock the whole thing and then open it again. Rather than opening the foot first and then trying to move it. So go ahead and, with them closed, pivot it backwards, and then you can achieve sort of a VTOL stance as a quasi-Gerwalk mode now. Alright, now we want to focus on the arms, and to begin doing that you pop the intakes free, and it shouldn't be hard at all because the intakes are actually a little too loose for my liking anyway, so you can do it any number of ways, but a little wiggle jiggle ought to do it if they're not already free on you. And then you're going to go ahead and you need to swivel these arms out, and that's difficult to do, one, because there's not very much room there, and two, because the arms are recessed into the plastic tray that they're housed in. So you actually have to lift up on the arm, which will be particularly frightening for anyone who had a Yamato toy, as you pull back. So this is a little scary, and all you want to do right now is kind of get them started. So there you can see, got them started. Now you want to rock your feet forward, your legs forward, and note that you got this big plastic triangle you're going to have to get around. It shouldn't be too difficult, but it's there. You get around, and it's going to kind of latch into the place. Now my head just popped off. That is not something to be concerned about. It's on a ball joint on the VF-0S. You can go ahead and just repeat that same procedure on the other side to get your arm right in front of that little stopper right there. All right, so we're getting pretty close now. All we have to do is bring those intakes back up. There is a little clip here that houses that bar that the hips are on. So you want to go ahead and bring that up and make sure you connect thoroughly to that black clip, because that is really where the strength of the intake joints are. Get that on there nice and tight. You can see this one's not quite in there enough. And again, press on the metal clip. Get everything as tight as you can, because otherwise they're going to pop out on you and annoy you. It's a good time to be able to close your wings. So you could bring your arms out. You're going to want to pivot those shoulders out. Bring the arms out. And then you want to bring your fist forward, like so. And there you go. And now you've made it to Gerwalk mode. Now obviously I just kind of rearranged everything a little bit so it was in a more orderly presentation, but here it is. Legs have a nice angle to them. Good sturdy. And you are ready to continue on, if you so choose, to Battroid mode. Now for those of you who haven't seen my VF-0A review, you might be wondering why I've been focusing so much on the Fokker if this is supposed to be a transformation guide for both toys. And this would be a time to tell you that the leg fell off of my 0A toy. So check out my separate video on how to fix your toy if the leg falls off. Okay, now we're ready to move on to Battroid mode. And I originally was going to do this with my VF-0A toy, but that toy is the devil. So instead we will be using the 0S to continue, but obviously if you have a 0A toy that can be handled, then the transformation is the same. So we're going to just put a little pressure inward at the knees, and that will pop the intakes free like that. Go ahead and swing this swing bar back, and then we're just going to straighten out the legs. You can see kind of what position this would need to be in for Battroid mode, so you can go ahead. Now you want to stop one click short on the intake because it's a little different from a VF1. There's a slight tweak at the Gerwalk joint in Battroid mode. Swing up your kneecap, and then you can just go ahead. Now you can see there's a little white paint rubbing off inside the knee there. Not a big deal, but just something to point out. I'm going to go ahead and close up that leg. And same thing on the other side, obviously very quick and easy. Pressure upward, and now your legs look more or less like you would need them in Battroid mode. Okay, before we go any further, there's a gimmick that I want to show you, but I advise you can quickly forget about it. You can go ahead and open the canopy, and then you can rotate the pilot figure backwards. So obviously when he's in Battroid mode, he would be in that position. The problem with doing this is that if you then want to rotate him to be facing down, you might feel the urge to touch this black piece of plastic and it will pop right off on you. So that was very daring on my part. I advise you, since you can't see the pilot in Battroid mode, never ever to even bother with that. Alright, so your toy looks like this, and what we're going to do now is focus on the head region, and we want to pop out these little pieces on either side of the head. So you might want to go ahead and rock your head a little bit and try to get it out of the way as much as you can. Here, I'm lifting it up, and then I'm just going to try to fish a finger in here and pull this forward. Now, in doing this, you might pop these pieces off. If you do, it's not at all a problem. They're very easily put back on the toy. Okay, when you do this, you can see underneath there are metal guide rails. You will be sliding the nose cone in a moment, but let's flip the toy over. We're going to go ahead, and right behind the canopy there's this black piece on the 0S toy. It has a tooth that's connecting to the piece in front of it. And so what we want to do, and it's such a tight, you can see it's actually pulling away at a piece of plastic here. What we want to do is pop that free. So we're just going to kind of apply pressure, and that pops it free like so. And then what we want to do is pull the chest forward and up a little bit. This is slightly different from what the written instructions tell you, and that's because there's a pin inside here that people have been scratching their canopy on. So we're going to try to avoid doing that by just changing things up ever so slightly. So we're going to go ahead and pull this forward, get it up, and then we're going to pop open this door on the back. and then slide that back. Now what we want to do is rotate the head, kind of bring it down and through. So I'm just showing you the neck there. Now the head on the 0S might pop off on you. That's not a big deal if it does, but here we go, pulling it through. So there you have it. So now that the head is through, you could just push up on the nose. And that is what I'm warning you against doing because of that pin. Now on the 0S toys, it does not seem to be nearly as prominent. I'll try to show you. There's a pin kind of right here inside the shield, and you can't really see it on my 0S. On my 0A, you can see it poking through, so this is definitely more important if you have a 0A toy. But now I'm just pushing up. You can see, pushing up. And there you go, my head popped off. Again, just a ball joint. So I'll put that on again in a moment. But with that all the way up then, you can also pull forward on this piece. And you can see you've got the head. Oops. Now I did get one of my little pieces here in the wrong spot. So try to be cognizant of that. So we can pull it forward, bring it up, bring it back, and then bring it back over. So you can see, should look like this with a head on. I'm going to go ahead and use the missing head to our advantage here. There is a ball joint inside, and there's a pivot point that ball joint is on. So in Battroid mode, you want to bring this all forward. Now obviously you would have a head on there. So you want to bring this pivot point forward. There you go. And then have the ball joint in the forward position. Now when I put the head back on, this means the head won't bump up against that neck quite as much. And it should just pop right on. And there you go. We have a head again, and it's now in the proper position. So you can kind of imagine pulling the face forward just like we did on that ball joint. Okay, your toy should look something like this now, and you can see there's no canopy visible underneath here. Heat shield's down right where it is. Nose cone has slid until it clicked, and that's how you get there. Now we're going to turn our attention here to the bottom of the toy, and here's the pitot tube. And what the instructions tell you to do is go ahead and twist it out of the way, and then pop open this door. What I am going to recommend you do is to remove the pitot tube entirely. And here's why. You do not want to damage the pitot tube during transformation. You don't want the pitot tube to fall off, and then you won't notice it because in Battroid mode you're not supposed to see the pitot tube. So I would recommend remove the pitot tube, throw it in the box, and that way there you always know where your pitot tube is. So once you've got that trapdoor opened, we want to go ahead and rotate everything around so we can get this metal bar here into that opening we have created. So I'm just going to go ahead and slide it down into place, start closing it. Now the trick here is you want your intakes behind these plates here. So we've got to go lift those up a little bit and bring that back down. Okay, so once you've done that, you should be able to click it into place and close that door and have it be flush on all sides. Alright, turning our attention to the top of the toy, we can go ahead and recess this plate. We needed it to get the head out from fighter mode, but now we can go ahead and tuck it tight. And it has two little lips on either side that it's going to wedge underneath. And it should wedge like that. And we can go ahead and bring that backpack and have that folded over. And then, now remember, if you're going straight from fighter to Battroid mode, you do want to pull out those thrusters. We did that as part of the Gerwalk transformation. Now we're going to go ahead and just bring the back down, and it will clip on to that metal swing bar we had from before. And then that allows us to just go ahead and bring the wings back. Now one should go underneath the other. It's not like a VF-1 toy. That's how that actually is supposed to work. Again, on your 0A toy, that's painted, so you might get some scratching there. So that's something to be aware of. Now we can look at the front of the toy, or the top of the toy, I should say, and we can go ahead and swing down these covers here. And that fills in the cavities in front of the chest there, like so. And then you are essentially in Battroid mode. Now what you do need to do is, your feet are probably still in the Gerwalk mode feet position. So you want to go ahead and, again, closing them works a little best. Close them, rock them forward, and then reopen them back up. And you should be able to get your toy to stand nice and straight. Here is Battroid mode. I've recessed the feet entirely. You can have them out to whatever click you prefer, including all the way out for some crazy dynamic posing if you like. Battroid mode should look tight and well put together. It should also function that way, so you should be able to handle it without it falling apart very much. Check out my full review on anymoon.com, and as always, thanks for watching.